So now we're going to have a fireside chat on contemporary leadership. In this session, we designed to help you recognize the importance of defining your purpose as a leader or as an inspiring leader. And Tanessa Boutin is here to moderate. And Tanessa is from our Saskatchewan region, and she also sits on our national board representing our new professionals. Tanessa, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David. A welcome and bonjour to everybody on the call. It's a cold day in Saskatchewan, so a warm welcome to everybody that is with us today. David has politely introduced me a bit already, so if you didn't catch that, my name is Tanessa Boutin. I have the privilege of serving as the current chair for the IPAC National New Professionals Committee, and I'm also the past president for IPAC Saskatchewan Regional Group. Also a proud employee of Farm Credit Canada, where I lead our privacy and access program. And I have the great privilege of moderating our fireside chat this morning with an incredibly inspiring female leader to all who know her across FCC and outside of the organization, Ms. Megan Dolo. So before I get into our fireside chat, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement representative of both IPAC Saskatchewan, IPAC National, and FCC. So I'm very privileged to serve for two organizations that are deeply committed today, tomorrow, and every day after to continue to learn and grow our journey of reconciliation. I'm extremely proud to serve with all of the organizations that I do work with who prioritize partnerships with our Indigenous and non-Indigenous partners and organizations across Canada to improve education and relationships that lead to reconciliation. We must never forget reconciliation is a shared responsibility for all Canadians and requires action from all of us every day. I want to acknowledge that while we are virtual here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Megan and I are situated on the traditional lands referred to as Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Enough for me. And I'm excited to turn the mic over to Megan Dolo to introduce herself and dive into the wise learnings she has prepared to share with you all today. Megan, over to you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Tanessa. And a thank you to David, Aaron, and Tanessa for inviting me to meet with this group of young professionals today. I'm really excited to do it. So my name's Megan Dolo. I'm currently, and for almost 3 years, have been privileged to serve in the role of VP Law and Corporate Secretary at FCC. I'm a lawyer by training, but I have the privilege to lead a really diverse group of professionals across the country in both official languages. So I just want to recognize that people attending this call are from all across the country. And so thank you for making your time. IPAC's a neat organization, and it really mirrors us. We start some of our team calls with, how's the weather where you are? And I expect we're all experiencing something a little different today, and that's okay. And I'm really excited to do a fireside chat with Tanessa. Tanessa is one of the great folks who work at FCC, and I have the privilege to work with daily. Tanessa and I are pretty, I think we're pretty authentic. We're pretty easy with each other and not afraid to say it how it is. So I hope you hear that. We're prepared to sort of share some of our successes and failures. And I prepared this today thinking, what do I wish I would have done better or done different when I was young in my career? So I offer it to you today to take what you like, to leave what you don't, and looking forward to some engagement at the end of the session. So if we could maybe just advance one slide, Aaron. I know that this is a group of keen young professionals who like action items. And so Tanessa and I, it's a fireside chat. We're going to keep it casual, but we're really focusing it around three big themes. The theme is values and purpose. And I think that's really important for lots of reasons that we're going to share. And I would say we have three asks of you: to be authentic, know yourself; to be intentional about what you discover and define for yourself; and then be brave to live into that. And all of those are actions, because you're in control of your career and you're in control of the life that you build. And so they're intentionally framed as verbs. And I would encourage you to leave today and this inspiring day that IPAC's put together for you, knowing that you have a lot of control over where you go in this great career and the big path you have ahead of you. And if today can give you some good ideas for building the road ahead of you, Tanessa and I would be delighted. Okay, Erin, can you flip us forward one more? So Tanessa,
Alrighty.
this is our big thing, right? Be authentic, know yourself.
This is not very difficult, like Megan said, for her or I. This is kind of how we roll on the daily. So you will definitely get a couple of full true spades here. But what I've really recognized throughout my journey in my career, and something that I really see in Megan, and part of the purpose of why I recommended her to be the speaker for this series, is that's exactly how she shows up, and that's what she models into her team to show up and bring their true self. So I want to start out by asking you, Megan, I know why it's important to me, but why is this such an important piece of your journey?
So for me, this is my big learning and my big hope for everybody on this call. I wish I would have been clear about who I am, both to myself and to everyone I've worked with earlier in my career. So for me, at a high level, getting clear on your purpose and values, it'll help you as a person be happier in your life. I think it helps you create a career that's fulfilling for you and matches with who you are and who you aspire to be. And then if you lead people or you want to lead people, there is nothing that a team can smell faster than an inauthentic leader. And I think inauthenticity just breeds distrust. If you're not who you are with yourself, are you who you really are with them? And so for me, I think, Tanessa, thanks for the invitation. Like my personal journey here is I started out my career in a law firm, great firm, speak well of them all the time, learned many good things. And I'm not sure I ever really told them who I was. I aspired to be a mom. I'm not sure I felt like I could take that to the table in private practice and talk about that. I spent a lot of time worrying about who I wasn't bringing to the table at work. And I'm sure that people saw that. And then for me, I think it was a confidence thing. I'm not sure I could bring who I fully was into the law firm. And I'm sure I would have been a better professional, a better team member, and just more fun to be around if I had been. I certainly know that I would have worried about less. So for me, once I sort of figured that out and embraced who I was and was okay with bringing my whole self to work every day, there was just a comfort. I think there was an authenticity. I felt it. I know those around me felt it. And it was really, it was a barrier for me in my career at a law firm that once I let it go, I could have let it go much earlier. So my encouragement to this group is spend some time being honest with yourself about your purpose and values really early in your career. And that's, we're going to give you some ideas for how to do that. And I should have done it.
But as is everything, Megan, everything's a learning part of your journey, right? And you don't learn it all the time without actually going through it, right? So thanks for sharing that. One of the things that Megan and I have really bonded over is motherhood and being wives of our spouses who also have careers, and how that comes to our table and at work, and being able to show up authentically. We'll get into the slides in a little bit, but one of the things that really resonates with me and my participation in wanting to continue and have a lifelong career at FCC is how that fit my personal bucket of being able to feel like I was leaving my home family and coming to a work family, and that it felt right. I was able to show up as my whole person, and having a leader who really models that, accepts me on the days when I'm coming in frantically dropping kids off late from school, and it's like, hey, me too, we're both late, you know, like that kind of environment, and fostering that acceptability that we are our own whole person and it's okay, is really one of the big grounding points for me that made me feel like, yeah, FCC's home. It feels like a work home for me, and likewise to what Megan said, I really hope that folks in their career journey feel like they've found that work home. That when they leave their home life and they go and spend all that time and energy away from their loved ones, that they're really feeling like they're at home and it's not a job. It's something that they're able to do passionately and be themselves while they're doing it. So Megan, I'm curious because I've gotten to know a lot of the executive table at FCC, and I still try and mind my P's and Q's a little bit more carefully as I'm learning some of them. So I maybe don't show up as my full authentic self for good purpose and good measure. But across not because they wouldn't accept it, but it's probably my comfort level of getting to know them. But across the executive table that we've got, how do you see yourself lining up to your colleagues? Are you the same, different? What would you say?
So I'm different, and I would say everyone's different. So diversity is a big value where Tanessa and I work, a diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of background. So we should all be different. And diversity among a team creates a strong team. So I'm different, and that's okay. I can tell you at the executive table, I'm new, right? I'm just 3 years into this role, and I had to learn it during the pandemic. So I'm super aware of that. I am on the young side, although don't tell them that. And I have the youngest kids. And I would say there's only a few of us that have kids, and I've got young ones that still crawl into bed with me sometimes. So sometimes I'm tired in the morning for different reasons, and that's okay. And so I came into this role having done the work that we're going to talk about today. I know my purpose and values. I shared my purpose and values. There were no surprises about who I was, who my whole authentic self was. So I'm not apologizing for that whole self I bring to the table, or for being a little tired in the morning because I had a 10-year-old crawl into bed with me at night. It just makes it easier. You're fully who you are, and you're not apologizing for it. To this crew, I know imposter syndrome is something we all deal with. From my reading, I hear it's even more of a challenge when you're new in your career. I would encourage you to do this work and know yourself. I think it helps with imposter syndrome. You're not trying to be anyone other than who you are. And those who are around you know the whole you, and that's what you're bringing to the table. For me, there's a peace and a comfort and a confidence in that. And again, if you can get to that space earlier in your career, all the better.
Awesome. Love it. I think we're ready to head into the next slide here, Erin. I think it's a good segue based on Megan's last comment there. So can you tell us who these little people are?
Yes, so they're a little older now, but this is one of my favorite pictures. So the two dudes and the Carhartts on the bookends, those are my two guys. And the one in the middle is my nephew. And I share this all the time. And I share it in presentations about our team because I do think our whole authentic self is who we are in and outside of work. And I don't mind telling people that I have kids, and I don't apologize for it. I'm going to show you, this is my purpose and value statement. And so I would encourage everybody on the call to take a few hours in a quiet space, try to distill a purpose statement. Think about 2 sentences that capture who you are. I would say get beyond the glossy. If it's something you can Google, it's not true to yourself. But I would encourage you, as a takeaway from here, try to define your purpose statement that captures who you are and your values. Try to get it down to 2 sentences and use it as a bit of an anchor in your life. So I'm going to share mine if it gives you ideas and the why. And I'm going to share a couple that I found from some of my peers that I find really inspiring. This is mine, and my kids are the why. Bringing my whole authentic self to the table is table stakes for me. And that's my biggest personal learning as a professional. And it's been consistent since I had that big learning moving from private practice into public service. And the start of this, the tackle life with powerful ease, that's how I want to show up for my team. That's how I want to show up for myself. And that's how I want to show up for my family. I'm at my best when I'm embodying this. I'm at my worst when I'm pulling away, distancing myself for tough things, taking a step back. So for me, this sentence is an anchor. It's a talisman. It's a reminder of how I want to be. And I'll share sort of how I keep myself true to that and keep re-examining that over time to make sure it's true to me.
So Megan, can you share with us a little bit of, you mentioned it was a table stake for you, both from your leaving private practice, coming to FCC. So reflecting back on that, what was it that you learned or what happened that led you to deciding that that was a table stake requirement?
So I did a little talking to people in my profession, and I did a lot of self-reflection. And so the talking to people in my profession, I went around to partners who I was aspiring to be like and asked them about their purpose and values and what drove them to find value in their profession. And they were great answers, and they were true for them, and they weren't true for me. And so, and that's okay. But to me, it was a sign that I couldn't identify a why that mattered to me for the next step where I was working. And then I did a lot of self-reflection about the energy that I was putting towards not being my authentic self. So the energy that I was putting towards not speaking about my aspirations to have a family, the energy I was putting towards making sure I was in the office at 7:30 just to be seen every day because that seemed to matter. And I just realized I didn't have that energy. And 20 years later, I don't think anybody in the world has energy to put towards being inauthentic. I think it just sucks away from our purpose, and it sucks away from the good work that we can be doing.
It's a super, super powerful learning. And I can't imagine that it had anything less than a massive impact on your family and the different hats that you wear across both your career and personal life. So in terms of that self-awareness, I guess, how did you even get to the point that you recognized it's time to do some self-reflection here? Were you stuck? Were you at like a sticking point in your career? What was it?
Oh, Tanessa asked the good questions. I was really successful, and I wasn't excited about the future. I couldn't find a why. I couldn't identify my why. Why would I want to be a partner? The reasons I heard, prestige, money, they didn't resonate with me. I just couldn't identify my why, and I couldn't find any energy in that. And I'd contrast that to, my current job. My why is pretty clear. I get to lead people who do amazing things. I get to support them in their growth and their achievement. And I get to work for a company that feeds the world. Those can get you through some pretty tough days. Yeah,
no doubt. Absolutely. And it no doubt changed your career trajectory. But I know that when you did make the choice to come over to FCC, you weren't in the role that you were in now. And being a high performing, career aspiring woman, definitely, I think the respect level that those who do work with you and do know you is held in high esteem because of who you are and how you not only show up but deliver, and that makes a big difference. And so it's obviously launched you into a great career trajectory opportunity. But I believe there were some different points in time along the way that you had to make some tough decisions, even at FCC. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a few stories, and I think you might have a couple too, Tanessa. So anchoring in this, they're tough, I would say, for the outside observer, and they weren't very tough because I knew myself and my values. I have turned down roles at various times in my career with FCC. I've turned down big jump up leadership roles because they didn't come at the right time. So I had one come when I was on mat leave with my second son, and it would have been amazing. And I would say objectively, people thought I was crazy. People told me I was crazy. I got lots of concerned calls that I was making a huge mistake. But that role at that time wouldn't have allowed me to live into my purpose. It was just, it was an objectively great opportunity, not right for me. And so having done the work to do the reflection and get clear on who I am, who I want to be, what's most important, allowed me to be really good at that decision. It wasn't the right time. I wasn't prepared to come back from my leave early. I just wasn't prepared for that role at that time. And I was totally fine with turning it down, and totally fine with the 50 conversations that followed where people thought I was crazy, which is fine because only I know myself, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you live true to that commitment, right? And that purpose, which is awesome. So maybe we'll come back to this in a minute. Do you want to jump over to share some of some other leaders' purpose statements?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to flip through these pretty quick. I find examples helpful when I'm doing things. So I wanted to share some, I think, really good examples of my fellow leaders, my peers' purpose statements. So to create brighter possibilities and show up with others while remembering what's important in life. This is a peer who is really great about not showing up for others, but with others. So that's an important statement for her. And her anchor, she's also a parent. And so her anchor is well remembering what's important in life. Big job, lots of responsibilities. And her purpose statement keeps her anchored in both how she wants to show up as a professional, leading her team, and then also her bigger life and sort of how she balances all of the roles that she plays. Erin, can you flip forward one more? So another example, and this is from a really creative colleague who's in charge of a creative division at FCC. His is beautiful, simple, straightforward to the point. He's not a doer. He's a connector and a stimulator, and he works in the creative world. If you knew him, you would know these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words perfectly describe who he is and how he shows up every day. Erin, can you flip forward one more time? This example of a purpose statement, if it helps you to craft yours, is by a leader who leads in a subject matter area that she cannot do. So she's a leader who's never been a contributor in that area. She can't do the job of her team. And what a leadership challenge, right? Her job can't be doing the work. Her job is unlocking the potential of her team. And her commitment is, as she does that, making a positive impact. And then my last example, Erin, one more slide. This is from my former boss, who is the CEO of our organization. And I'm not a sporty person. And I quite often say at the executive table, who's a lot of dudes who played a lot of sports, that I hate sports analogies and I refuse to perpetuate them, but here we are. He was a sports guy. And the best team dynamic in sports and work was the same for him, minus the locker room, because he had ladies at the table. But I think this was really good. His job was to bring people together. He had 2,000 people to bring together and make us engaged and passionate and achieve more than 2,000 individuals could do as a company. So I would say, as you're doing this work, I really would encourage you, it's worth a couple hours of your time. For deep reasons, knowing yourself, being more happy, being more clear with your organization about who you are. I would say when you do this work, share it with your team and your leader. They should know who you are. It actually might help people identify opportunities that are really good for you and a good match for you. And I would expect, I would say that you should expect when you're doing job interviews to be asked, what's your purpose? Or if you're going to lead people, why do you want to lead people? And you should be prepared with an answer that's really true to yourself and well thought through, because it has to be more than it would have been for me staying in private practice, which is just getting the next title or getting a bigger raise or moving up the food chain. It will be really powerful if you do the work to understand your why, and then you're prepared to share that with your organization. And I would say if you're in a leadership interview and your next leader doesn't ask, why do you want to be a leader? You should think why they're not asking that.
That's awesome. Super good advice. Thanks, Megan. Erin, I think we're good to move on to the next item that we've got on being intentional. So Megan, tell us a little bit about how you, once you've got that clarity on your purpose and your values, how you actually stick with it. This is not an easy task.
Perfectly imperfectly, right? I forgot to thank this group for taking the time to attend today. David reminded me how busy everybody is and how learning has taken a backseat these past few years. So thanks for attending today. Just as you're being intentional and speaking up and making time to do education and learning to grow yourself, I would say once you do the work to figure out who you are and define your purpose and values, the busyness of all of your lives are going to draw you from that, right? The next shining opportunity is going to draw you from that. I would suggest that as life gets busy, it's easy to lose track of it. So I have some ideas that work for me about how you can stay true and keep checking in with your purpose and values after you define them. And sometimes as a young professional, it's just easier to go with the flow. You'll get lots of opinions and lots of help, and they're all right for the person giving you the opinions and help. And you have to do the work to figure out if they're right for you, and you have to stay on top of it a little bit, or you'll get pulled into a stream that's it's not a good fit, and that can be okay, but you got to find your way back.
Mm-hmm. So Megan's going to walk us through how one of the ideas of how she actually does this, which I love. Erin, you can flip this slide here. Thanks.
Okay, so like I said, this is just what works for me, but I really like tangible ideas when I spend time to go to sessions like this. So for me, every quarter, I have it in my calendar, and I actually have time with my husband, and we do a pie chart exercise. And so every quarter, I assess how much of my time I'm spending in these different career areas. So how much time am I spending on my team? How much time am I spending with my fellow executives, with our board of directors? How much time am I spending learning and growing? And how much time am I spending on strategic work versus doing work? And I also, in my calendar and with my husband, we do a pie chart about how are we each doing and how are we doing as a family unit. So what's my balance between mom, leader, wife, daughter, friend, and volunteer? Because those are all hats that I wear and that I choose to wear and that I want to do a really good job on. And so for me, it's being intentional. It's having a structure and a process in place to revisit over time how I'm spending my time, if it aligns with how I want to be spending my time and my energy and my focus, and if how I'm living every day really is reflective of my purpose and values.
I love this a lot. I love that you break out your priorities and that you work through this, not just with your partner at home, but with your supports at work too. Like I see it as one of the staff under you, how you really balance this time very concertedly. So it's definitely something that impacts folks like myself, which is a great way to recognize that you model the way. So thanks for doing that just on the daily, Megan. One thing that I really appreciate is not just through this actual task of keeping yourself intentionally at your commitments, you make sure that pendulum doesn't swing too far. I think we hear a lot of people talking about that balance swing, right? Like we can overcommit into work, or you overcommit into your personal life, and what's that happy balance? And the reality is it's not a balance. Sometimes work does take more priority. Sometimes family does take more, but you do intentionally kind of sit down quarterly, or you do those checkpoints to say, okay, am I off? Okay, let's reset. Now it's time to get a little bit more balanced, and that's okay. But certain times in life are just going to call for your family bucket to explode, right? If you have a major change, of a loss of a family member, a new baby, all those big life events that happen, it's going to have a natural impact. And recognizing, being okay with it, adjusting when you need to, those are really, really powerful messages that I don't think new professionals always hear at the beginning, right? It's like hit the ground running and go fast and don't slow down, right? And give your all to your career. So thanks for sharing that. A question that I had from you is, in the pandemic craziness, how did you see your pie charts fluctuate?
I hope everyone's giggling because I hope we can laugh about it now, right?
Right. Wow.
Like I understand that every quarter is going to ask something different, right? Like you say, starting a new job, your work bucket has to get bigger. So then what gets smaller? My first year in this role, which coincidentally, I think I took the job January 30th and we went home from the office in March. And anyways, it wasn't the greatest year of my life. I would say I lost my practice of intentionality and I didn't check in with myself during the pandemic crazies. And I got out of sync because I wasn't keeping track of it. So I'll tell you a little bit about my learning from failure, both at work and at home. At work, I wasn't checking in with myself and I hadn't been intentional about how I was going to structure my pie chart optimally in my new role. So I spent a lot of time doing, which was my old job. And I spent a lot of time, pie chart time upon reflection in the new parts of my role. So getting to know my executive peers, getting to know the board of directors. And that's okay. But what I lost track of was spending time with our team. And I lost track of it for almost a year. And I got some really hard feedback from our team about the impact that had and had to do a bit of a hard reset. I think in reflection, if I would have stayed more intentional and committed and not let the crazies of that year sort of drive me, if I would have driven my own career, my own time, making sure my own purpose and values showed up even in a new job, I think it would have been different, but it is what it is. And I learned from it for sure. And so now we're back on the intentional practice.
Yeah. That's awesome, Megan. We got a couple questions in the chat here, and I'm going to save the first one that came in for a little bit later, but the second one I think is right on track with where we're headed. And Megan, if I can ask you to just back up a little bit, I think you're shuffling some papers close to your microphone there. All good. But the question that came in from Twyla was, how do you track and check in with yourself? So how do you really hold yourself to account and intentionally set this? Is it like an agenda reminder that you ping yourself? Do you have like an iCloud alert and your husband's like, oh, it's time to check out on the pie chart tonight? What is it?
He loves when he gets the alert for the pie chart talk.
He's like, I'm out.
Totally. So like, it sounds simple, but it's in my calendar. Like it is actually in my calendar and it's 2 hours blocked on a Friday because that's my thinking time. And it's blocked by quarter and I get a reminder a week before so that I get prepared for it. And it's just sacred time that doesn't get moved. And it's the same thing for my family. It's the topic of conversation in our monthly date, which is in our Outlook calendar because we have a busy household and everything's in the Outlook calendar. And then Twyla, it's an actual physical, like I draw a pie. So I start the quarter with, how do I want my quarter to look? Is it going to be busy work? Are the kids going to be busy? How does it need to work? And I pull out what I hope the quarter would look like. And then I draw out how the quarter showed up. And I just ask myself, is that okay? Because sometimes it is, right? Sometimes life happens. Is that okay? What do I need to learn and adjust in the quarter going forward? And just what do I want my life to look like going forward, knowing what the last 3 months have been like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. My husband and I actually do kind of a similar thing as Megan and her husband, not a quarterly pie chart, but we do markers and paper January 1st every year. We write down our plan for the year and we line it up and check it out, and whatever works for you works. I know, Megan, we've talked about as well, right, with the pie charts, fluctuation that happens throughout the course of our life, just the natural life and career impacts that can adjust some of those things are really just kind of come at us at curveball speed sometimes. And how we lean to support either ourselves or others isn't always through a pie chart, right? And or through markers in a paper planning your year ahead. Sometimes it is through just that self-awareness and recognition that you need support, or you need to call on, your village around you, your teammates around you, professional support, depending on what it is, but being really, truly, like you said, back to that authenticity at the beginning, true to yourself and recognizing your needs at the different point in times that you have. And if you're off balance with one of those needs, what kind of support mechanism is going to support you to get through that troubling either pie offset or that challenge that you're facing in your career. And it's really, truly important to kind of motoring through them. I think we're good on this slide. Thanks for sharing this, Megan. This is awesome. I love it. The last learning that you had for us was to be brave. So tell us how you built this wonderful life you imagined.
Necklace actually that says build the life you've imagined. It's when I had that big decision point in my life about I need to figure out who I am and be true to it, and it drove a lot of changes. I think this is my biggest encouragement for this group. Your career is within your control, and I would think your career is a big part of your life, and so the impact that will have on the life that you're building is pretty profound. And recognize your power in that and really step into it. And my best image for that is a road.
Switch the slides, Erin. Erin, you can switch sides. Might have lost her. Okay, and visualize the yellow brick road, everybody. Erin will switch the slide when she has a chance here. Go ahead, Megan.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
So for me, thinking about my career behind me and my career ahead of me, I've always visualized a road. And again, if it helps this crew, think about a road, because you can both find your own path in your career and your life, and you can recognize that every brick counts. Once you know yourself, you defined your purpose and your values, I would say make conscious decisions. That's the be brave. So make really conscious decisions to define why you are on the path that you are, how it aligns with who you are, why you want the next job, why you're in this role, why you're at the employer. I would say analyze all those and keep anchoring back to your purpose and your values and checking in with yourself. Tanessa and I had a great chat yesterday about how roads have twists and turns. They can go in different paths. One of the best metaphors I've ever heard is a career is a marathon, not a sprint. So take a long-term view, and that's okay. And I would say don't think about it as an asphalt road. It's a brick road. Everything you do is a brick that you're placing towards your career and the life that you're building. Think broad. Think broader than the team that you work on. Think broader than the work tasks ahead of you. Take opportunities, volunteer, and just consciously make sure every brick is anchored in that purpose and that values. And I would say your road might twist and turn, but it'll get you where you want to go.
I love it. We did have a really good chat about this, and we talked as well about even just my experience and some of the bricks along the way, or the right turns or left turns. Sometimes the right turns were the right decisions. The left ones were the biggest learning opportunities. And so my path personally wasn't just like a beautiful little road like this looks like. It might have had like a total veer off and then it came back to the path, but along that veer off I learned a ton. And had I not taken that opportunity to learn, I wouldn't have came back on the road with the new learnings and abilities and skills that I did have. And so that was huge for me moving into my journey and making that conscious decision. I'm going to kind of come back to this question that we had in the chat, because I think it's timely here. But the question was, what is the advice that you would have to give women in order to transition into leadership and breaking through the glass ceiling? And I love this question. It is so Megan and me. So it's awesome. And Megan, I'll maybe start a crack at it and then I'll let you jump in. But one, I'm obviously a few years behind Megan in my career, but as well on a lot of the same journeys as being a mom of 3 kids and a career aspiring woman. I actually had a higher level position in the provincial government before I came to FCC a couple of years ago. And for me, I had shattered through a lot of glass ceilings in my first 13 years of my career. Not without the support around me of really amazing leaders who encouraged me and saw the potential and gave me opportunities and supported me and were super great. Once the point in time hit where I could tell that glass ceiling wasn't just a glass ceiling, it was a dirt hole put over top that wasn't going to be pushed through. I realized it was not an organization that was for me anymore. It was time to go. It was time to go to an organization that was supportive of women. I'm super blessed to have a male boss who couldn't be more pro-women, pro-career women, putting me in the spotlight. Any opportunity that he has, he'll derail it over to me and say, hey, you'll do even better at this. You go do it. To find a work family that pushes women to fit into the non-traditional positions that we don't always show up in. That's what mattered to me. That's what really was important to me growing up and was ingrained in me as a woman. So for myself, it was like a don't give up. It's just not the place for you. And that was a good aha moment. Similarly to Megan's trajectory, it was like, doesn't feed my purpose. It doesn't feed my why. So it's time to find a place that does feed my why and my purpose, and that supports women pushing through the glass ceiling. So I am super thankful that I was able to easily shift over and find that. I will say, before I came from my last position to here, taking a demotion, the other opportunity I had was actually an executive vice president role at a different organization. And I walked away from that opportunity because it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like an organization that was going to support me to push through the glass ceiling. And so it wasn't right for me, didn't feel my purpose. And so at that point in time, I think I still stand by the decision was the right one. Money didn't matter. Title didn't matter to me. For me, it was what mattered was being able to continue my career and be a good mom. And that's what mattered to me. So that's where I am now. So I think as you go through your career, you'll see that, especially as a woman, like things will change, your life will change, pandemics will hit, like things will happen and your path changes. And your purpose changes, and that's okay. Megan, can you jump in and add to the end of that?
Yeah, I would say diversity is, I would say, a value of the modern world. And so everybody has a whole life outside of work, and everybody's whole life outside of work is different, but it should be full and challenging, and it should have to balance with their profession. So my personal experience, you would have noticed on my pie chart, there's no personal interests on there because my kids are really busy, and I choose that now. So my personal experience is my family is my biggest balance to my work. And that's okay, but everybody should have something in addition to work. So if you're in the same life circumstance as me and it's family, that's your balance at the table, don't apologize for it. We should all have a life outside of work. And I think we really need to sort of stop apologizing for that and see it as a positive. Having a full and challenging whole life that you can speak about freely and enjoy and is valued where you work is a positive. And that diverse team is the strongest team, and that strongest team is the best for your organization. I would say just this work to be clear who you are will help you have clarity as you make those decisions, will help you be clear. If you take that next role and you feel like you're shattering that ceiling, will be clear to your new boss about who you're going to be on the other side of the glass ceiling. So when I took this role, I had to go through like a ton of psychometric assessments, and they were great. But one of them, my new boss, who was our old CEO, he said, where on the scale of balance this role should they need more balance or less balance? He said less balance because it's a busy role. My test showed I need a high degree of balance. And so we had that conversation. I said, if you hire me into this role, I got 2 little kids and I'm going to need a lot of balance. I'm not going to work on my holidays. And my family's entitled to 3 or 4 hours of my time at night. That clarity, knowing who I was, being brave, sharing it with my new boss, we got that off the table before I even started. And he wasn't hiring me with an expectation that I wasn't willing to fulfill. So I knew who I was intentional about it in my new role, and I was brave. I think it would have been a great failure for me to come into this role pretending that I don't pay attention to the whole authentic me, and I don't expect to service that in any job that I do.
I love that. I think I remember actually my interview with you, Megan. I had my little people off at, my husband had taken them away during the interview. So Megan hadn't actually interviewed me, my boss had, and Megan joined in for the final. I think she's going to fit. She's going to fit with this group. Okay. And I had mentioned my family in it, and I remembered both of you guys asking where they were and if you could meet them. And for me, I was like, really, like right now in this interview, like, holy cow. But it just spoke to me about how it was important, and it truly is a family organization that fosters that support. So that was a big bucket filler for me. And I would share with other people kind of what Megan had said earlier about asking those interview questions back, and being really intentional about what your purpose is, making sure you feel the same way about the job you're taking, right? It's not just a new opportunity or more money. Really be concerted and carefully looking through those employers and be true to yourself.
And I hope you guys all have a great network. I hope you have mentors, people you use as touchstones. I hope you get a ton of advice. I would say listen to it all and only take into your heart what's true to you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap up, and then I think we've got some questions here. So one more slide, just to kind of wrap up our 3 big takeaways from Megan. So some kind of final advice and thoughts that you have to share, Megan?
Yeah. I'd encourage you to do the work, find out who you are, stay true to it. Keep asking yourself if the life you're living, the job you're doing, the organization you're working at fits with who you are. And then be brave about sharing that with the world. We're all interesting, diverse people, and we should speak about it more. And before we take questions, I just want to say thanks for inviting me, and thanks to all of you. Public service is really important and not always easy. And I'm really pleased that there's a group like IPAC to sort of keep everybody's passion in play.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks so much, Megan. I really appreciate your time. I know the depth and length of your role here. And so I'll speak on behalf of IPAC to say thanks so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. If you didn't leave feeling like, wow, that is a wise woman, I would be shocked, because Megan, you might not even know this, but you're known as being extremely wise across FCC. And I recycle some of my Meganisms to other people and in meetings, and they're like, you heard that from Megan, didn't you?
Oh no.
I already know it came from you. Yeah, it's too funny. It's awesome. But we did have one other question in here. We've got a ton of comments popping through, but I see one question right here. What advice would you give on career progression within the public service? Thoughts?
Yeah, I would keep asking the why, and I would ask leaders in different divisions the why behind their group. Why does your group do what it does? How does it contribute to the world? For me, the why is a big passion play. That's why I do what I do, and that gets me through the tough days. I think probably this group has tons of opportunities in front of it, and if you can find the place that you connect to and the people who share the why, that's probably a pretty good sign that that's the next good spot for you to aim your energies at.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think one of the things I didn't know at the beginning, and I had sought advice, actually, I was very lucky, past IPAC national president Win Young, who was a long-term deputy minister in Saskatchewan's husband happened to be my boss. So I was double dipping on their family for advice all the time in my early stages of my career. But Win had shared some advice with me about, I think people naturally see your career projection as like a ladder or this linear movement. And the reality is it's not at all. It's more of a plate of spaghetti, and you're really just a messy, intertwined, it might seem like chaos at sometimes, or you're taking turns that don't really have a connection, but they always will. And you just kind of need to trust in that gut of yourself. And even if one of one of the reasons why she was saying this is that that linear thought is that we can get fixated on a certain job here in the link or up here that we are really targeting. And in public service, jobs are gone like that sometimes. Reshuffles, ministry reorgs happen. Sometimes it feels like monthly. So if you have your eye on a position, it could be gone. So just being mindful that any opportunity is an opportunity, and to not kind of get lock-handed into something that you feel like is your job. It could be a completely different opportunity that comes your way. And so just be open to that and open to any opportunity that does pop up. So that was one piece of advice I really, really liked getting from her. So I would share it with others. I think we've got a little while we got about 9 more minutes. We had some questions around loving hearing about parents and their balance of children and family with roles in government, which I love. I like that too. I think Megan's conversation around like being authentic and showing up. It's not just in the private practice, it's in government too. And I felt that way a lot. Like working in the company of some folks, I felt like I had to hide that I was pregnant for a really long time. I don't know if you felt that way too, Megan, which is horrible. Like I totally missed out on opportunities on mat leaves, and felt the impact of what I think is still a gender imbalance in the public service, and honestly just globally with women. And I think we've got a long ways to go still. So not to like dip into the feminism realm, but I do think that our biggest opportunity is rallying together, being champions for women in leadership roles, and keep moving the dial and don't give up, support each other. I'm so lucky to have a Megan in my leadership table, and if you were at the New Professionals Conference last year, you would have met Heather, who was also one of my early career female mentors, who was also a mom and a boss babe, and just I was super supportive of women. And I think find those people, because they really will help you and push for women doing a good job, and men in the workforce too. Dads matter too.
Yeah. I would say the more we know ourselves and we spend energy on who we are, I'd say the stronger we feel. And then, yeah, I think you have to, for sure, I feel a champion of women and the men. There's tons of people on our team who are caring for elder parents, and they have a full and challenging life, and they need to be able to bring that into work as well. Parents, there are people with actual hobbies and interests, unlike myself, because my kids are my hobbies and interests, but that take that take their time, and they need to be able to speak to that, and they've got commitments to go do things that feed their soul, and they should be just as supported, right?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Definitely, for sure. I think we are good on questions. Erin, is there anything that I maybe missed? I don't see any in the chat. Or
we've got a couple of minutes left. So
Okay.
I'm going to go back to something, Megan, that you said earlier, and that was, why do you want to lead people? Leading people is not for everyone. You might think that you want to be a leader, and then when you start managing people, you might say, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So maybe just a few words or advice to those who are aspiring leaders, just to help them to try and figure out, if leading people is really for them, or, would they be much happier being, a senior policy analyst, or, taking a leadership role, but not necessarily leading people. So how do they get to that point of really determining, is this for me?
Say, identify your why, talk to lots of leaders. And ask them what they like and don't like about it. And I think the basis of this is I need to lead this in our organization. And I think we need to make equal space and value, whether you are great at leading people or you're a great subject matter expert. They're both great, fulfilling career paths. And I think it's frustrating if you find yourself in the wrong one. I would challenge yourself if you want to do a leadership position. Ask yourself if you're leading in the area where you have practice as a subject matter expert, ask yourself if you did no more doing of your job and you just enabled others, if you'd be okay with that. because your job as a leader is not to do their job. It's to support, help, and move bricks out of the way so that your team can do the job that you used to do.
That's great. Well, listen, thank you to both of you for sharing your own personal stories, your insights, your leadership. This has been very helpful. We're now going to take a break, let everybody go get a drink, have a stretch, and then we'll be back at 1:40. So we'll see everybody then. Thanks again to both of you.
Thank you. It's our
Thanks
pleasure.
so much.